So it's been a while since I've been on the server, and this guy comes back up to me, the same guy, and I'm like, hey dude, what's going on? And he says, why don't you come and see my new house? I've really improved. And I'm like, I don't know, man, your houses last time weren't great, you didn't really take on board what I said. Oh, okay. So I follow him anyway, again, 1,000 blocks away, maybe more, I forget. And he surprises me. He says, what do you think of this? And I'm like, wow, that actually looks really, really good. You've taken on board what I said. You've got a good palette, good shape. Look at the garden. You've really taken on board everything I've taught you. You know what? I might just stay on this server. Have you got a boat for me so I can go across the ocean and make my own house and we can be neighbours? And he's like, yeah, sure, out back there's a boat that I've been working on for a while. Why don't you come and take a quick look? I'm like, sure, why not? I'll use that, and then I can get started on my house. Pretty impressed with this interior. Everything when I get outside. So I'm here to teach you 5 easy steps to improve your boat. Now I say improve, it's probably easier that you start from scratch, so 5 easy steps to make a boat, however you want to see it, doesn't really matter. So the first step is nearly always the same, the framework. So making the frame is probably the most important part because everything to do with building a boat is about the shape. The details are the last stage in this entire process. So I'm trying to give you some really good angles on what I'm working on here. So I'm trying to create the most boat-like shape I can produce using just log, and I'm trying to just outline and produce the overall shape before I start filling in the hull and everything else. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're making a boat is they start with just a hull and work from there, but if you start with a frame, get the shape right, and then fill it in, you're going to get a much better result. Now I'm going slightly overboard here, probably just because I know some of you are a little more talented at building and you probably want to see what more can be done. So I'm producing these extremities of shapes and even giving general curves on where normally you could just have it straight. So the biggest piece of advice I can give you for this stage is go on the internet, pick a picture of an actual boat and try and copy the shape using all of the framework that you can. So you have one down the middle, then 2 curving round each side, and then some decoration on the front and the back and the top. Those are based mainly on the black pearl from the Pirates of the Caribbean. So as I'm swerving around, you can kind of get the idea of how this shape works. So it's done now, so we need to work on the hull, which is the second step. So I'm just taking spruce wood and filling in 1 block behind the frame, all of the wood. Now this part here that I'm filling in is the easy bit because it lacks shape. I mean, you can add a little bit here and there with the half slab, but for the most part you don't have to worry. This here is the tough bit, so I've turned it on its side so you can see the shape of the hull. Now from the bottom, it actually extends quite far out just flatly before curving up into a steep incline. You really need to get that good curvature first on maybe just a single layer before you start filling it out, because that's the entire basis of this boat shape. And you can see that even once I filled it in, I keep on editing the hull of the ship just to try and get that amazing shape. You need to have the curvature correct. If that means taking a step back, looking at it, editing it block by block, so be it. I have to edit mine a lot. That curve at the back is really essential for boats because it's part of that overall shape. Now you'll see that I'm only doing half, and I did indeed only do half with the frame. That's because a boat is symmetrical and I'm able to use World Edit to save myself probably about 2 hours of time by doing so. So I'm just using World Edit to flip it over and paste it obviously if you don't have world edit, you just replicate it over on the other side, no problem. And that's the end of step 2. Fairly easy because it is trying just to fill in the space. However, you do have to do a little bit of free-forming on the bottom of the ship to get that nice curvature. And to be honest with you, mine's a little bit funky. On to the next stage, which is the mast. Or should I say masts, because you actually need more than one. Another common problem with people who build boats is they tend to only put one in the middle. Now that's okay if it's a small boat, and this tutorial / 5 steps is designed to teach you the technique, so it doesn't matter on size too much. However, you do need to make sure that you have 3 masts if you have a sizable ship. You can also add those little details at the front. I put that under this because it is a little extra. Now the middle one needs to be really tall, and the 2 at the front need to be a little bit smaller. You then just add some very simple log going across where the sails are going to be attached to, making sure they're roughly the width of the boat itself, so it all matches up really nicely. On the top, I used a bunch of cobblestone wall and fences just to make it look even taller, and you can add a flag on that later if you wanted to. So making sure you get these masts correct will dictate how good the sails look when we get to that in the next stage. So the shape there I'm pretty happy with. The distance between them I'm also pretty happy with. You need to make sure that there is an equal distance between them. Now on to the next stage, the sails. Probably one of the harder parts, and I will be going over them because there's quite a few sails to do, so you'll see plenty of them. You need to make it look like they have caught the wind, meaning that they have an arched shape going in the direction towards the front of the boat, so it actually looks like it's being pushed along in some way. I like to mix in some grey wool along with the white to make it look a little more weathered. Now obviously they're going to be different sizes of sails, so each one is individually crafted. Again, I'm only doing half to save myself some time, but you can see how the shape is fairly consistent with this very X-shaped sail, with it connected at the corners, and it goes outwards when you go to the middle. Once you've done that, you can either copy paste it or just replicate it over, and there you have it. You have a set of sails, but something is missing, and this is a very important part that people tend to forget. A real ship has a load of ropes attached to all the different parts. Honestly, my anatomy skills on the boat is not great, but you can see just by using fence and making it simulate gravity, you can start to link up the masts and make it seem a lot more natural. On top of that, you can also make these diagonal fences that you can add those sails that are triangular in between. So it actually adds that extra sail that it feels like it's missing. Lots of people forget about these sails, and again, my biggest piece of advice is get a picture of a real boat and see how it's done, because people just miss out loads of parts. Again, trying to get that shape, but this time a little more triangular, and you can get that general. See, look at the difference that has made to the boat in general, just adding those triangular shapes. And I'll give it a good angle so you can take a look and see how it is done. However, it is time to move on to the final stage of the build, which is of course the details. Now this is any man's game, but I'm just going to make a few recommendations on one side. So I've got some fences there on the side of the boats, some little windows. They're not really called windows on a boat, I don't know. I'm adding an anchor here on one side with some iron fences and a pretty cool cobblestone shape. Really nice to do, but only obviously put that on one side. Adding some cannon holes with some cannons. Now, I only had space to add 3 because of the shape of my boat. If you wanted to have loads of cannons, that's something you need to consider all the way back at stage 1 when you're working out the shape. I think that looks fine. I could have probably squeezed a couple more in. And then just around, I've added some fences and some more windows and that kind of thing. On the back, you need to add some glass because that's typically where the captain's office is. Now, I'm not doing interior, that would be hell on earth to do, but the boat itself is what I'm really after. And you could add some like lanterns hanging over that, maybe some like proper walkways, it's up to you. Now, you can obviously add a ladder with one of those lookout towers on the top. Honestly, the anatomy of the boat, I should have probably looked it up before I made this video, but I didn't, so you'll just have to put up with my dumb remarks. So once you've done that, you could go down onto the deck, add some more fences here and there, and just add a bunch of crates. And then of course they have this like hold where you can store stuff. So you just add a bunch of fences around a hole, then make a little inlet where you can put some crates and all sorts. And you may have also noticed that I sort of roughened up the shape of the deck there, and then that's it. The detailing is a very small part of the puzzle. I obviously under-detailed on this build because I want you to be more creative than I am being. I want you to learn from what I've done. This is just the 5 steps on how to make a boat. This isn't, a block-by-block tutorial. It's supposed to teach you, not show you exactly how it's done. It's very hard to explain, but I do get a lot of people saying, oh, this doesn't actually tell me how to do it because you're not giving me dimensions and stuff. Well, that's not what I want. If you're after a block-by-block tutorial giver, that's not me. I'm here to teach you techniques and how to sort of think like a builder and not just, mindlessly copy someone, because you don't learn anything that way. Anyway, that's it from me. I worked really, really, really hard on this video, so any sort of love and appreciation would be really appreciated by me. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye!